Hi guys, it's Narelle Cook from Canine Pseuticals and welcome to another week of Thursday's Thoughts. This is where I share bite-sized pieces of scientific information that I find really interesting and I hope you do too. This week, this is going to blow your mind. This article was published in 2018 in the Veterinary Research Journal. Look, there's lots of papers on this topic. I've just had to pick one to sort of represent the concept of what we're going to be talking about today. And that is undeclared animal species in dry and wet novel and hydrolyzed protein diets for dogs and cats as detected by microarray analysis. So every day, literally every day, I get emails from, upset and frustrated pet owners that have allergy dogs and they've tried everything. Their vet has, put them on all these different foods to try, the novel single protein diets, the hydrolyzed protein diets, etc. And, they're just not seeing the results that they want. Well, if that sounds like your situation, this Thursday's thought may be very revealing. So, even though we have regulatory bodies like the European Food Industry Federation, which is abbreviated to FEDIAF, and then the US equivalent, which is AFCO, so even though they state that labels must be accurate and provide detailed information on the ingredients, what the research is showing that mislabeling of pet foods is quite prevalent and a lot more prevalent than you would expect, which is really sad and scary. And the worst thing is, that might be fine if you've got a healthy dog that can eat anything off the shelf and, there's no issues. But diet is the gold standard for determining, what a dog might be reacting to when it comes to adverse food reactions. So if diet is a gold standard, like an elimination diet, but the foods used in that elimination trial aren't what we think they are, then it just throws everything into chaos. As a pet owner, you don't know what's going on. As a vet, you don't know what's going on either. So I'm just going to jump into the results and then we can talk a bit more deeply about it as we go through the paper. So they looked at 40 different products and it was a combination of, novel protein diets, dry versions, wet versions or canned versions. And they also looked at hydrolyzed protein diets, dry and wet of those as well. So out of the 40 products analyzed, only 10 presented with the content that correctly matched the label. So when they analyzed the food, what was in the food matched what was on the label. That's 10 out of 40 products. Okay, this is even more scary. 5 products didn't even contain the declared animal species that was on the label. Seriously, that is absolutely mind-blowing and completely unacceptable. So let's say you wanted to put your dog on I'll just randomly pick venison, a single protein, novel protein diet. So you spend a lot of money on a bag of venison, novel protein diet, and there's no venison in the food. That is literally what they're saying for 5 of these products. Whatever the animal was that was on the label was not in that food. 23 had undeclared animal species and 2 had a really vague label that they couldn't actually evaluate whether what the label was saying matched what was in the food. So if that is not just the most infuriating thing that you've heard today, I don't know. But it does give us hope if you are one of those pet parents that has an allergy dog and you've been struggling. At least it gives us some insight as to what might be going on. So if we scroll through, lots of studies that have been done analysing the proteins, the animal proteins in commercial pet foods. One in the US found that up to 38.5% of pet foods, just regular pet foods, were potentially contaminated with undeclared animal species. And, there are others. But if we go through, so the main contaminants that they found were pork, chicken, poultry, and turkey. And to go into that a little bit deeper, so this is showing you the number of the hydrolyzed and novel protein diets that had between 1 and 7 undeclared animal species detected. So to help make sense of this graph, so this is saying that 2 novel protein products had 7 undeclared animal species in each of those products. Crazy. So 3 novel protein diets had 6 undeclared animal species in each of those, and you can look at the rest as well. And then they actually break down the number and percentage of dry and wet foods in which animal species not listed on the label were detected. So if we go through these quickly, so 33.3% of pet foods had sheep detected in them, but sheep wasn't listed as an ingredient on the label. 61.5% had beef in them that wasn't on the label. Even scarier, 92.3% of products had pork in them that wasn't listed on the label. 88.9% had chicken. 85.7% had poultry. 84.6% had turkey. So if you know your dog doesn't do well on chicken and you're trying to do the right thing and buy a food that doesn't contain chicken, nearly 90% of the foods that this study tested had undeclared chicken in them. Only one dry food was correctly labelled. A few more of the canned foods were correctly labelled. Not that I'm saying to go out and start feeding canned food. But the authors do state, because, poultry and beef, they're the most commonly slaughtered animals for human consumption. So they provide a lot of animal byproducts that go into sort of the animal pet food manufacturing chain. So they're sort of saying that given that beef and chicken is just so much cheaper than ingredients such as duck and venison and goat, like that's probably why, there may be some substitution going on in that regard, which literally is commercial fraud if that's the case. But then the authors go on to say, when an adverse food reaction is suspected, a homemade elimination diet may be reasonable, or may be a reasonable alternative to commercial products, because it allows stricter control of the ingested ingredients and highly reduces the risk of contaminants that pose risk to the correct diagnosis of an adverse food reaction. I would not say may be a reasonable alternative. I would say a homemade diet would be absolutely the way to go. If you've got an allergy dog and you've tried everything and nothing seems to be making sense, you need to be making your dog's food at home. Yes, it's inconvenient, yes, it's a lot of work, but the research is clear. We can't trust, in the majority of cases, what's on the label versus what's actually in the food. And if you are doing a home prepared diet for elimination purposes, you have to be strict. So, no random treats. Even if you're giving like monthly or 3-monthly heartworm chews and they're beef flavored, for example, and you're trying to avoid beef, you need to consider really broadly everything that's going into your dog. No licking the cat bowl, no stealing treats from your other dog's bowl. So you have to be really dedicated if that's the path you want to go down. But absolutely, I think it's the way to go. If this sounds like you and you're not sure where to turn next, please email us at info@canineceuticals.com.au. We do have a consultation service that you can access via the website. That's canineceuticals.com.au. And, we can help sort of figure it out together with you and, put together an elimination plan, help you do that from home. If this does sound like you again and you feel like you're pulling your hair out, please let me know in the comments. What have you tried? What has the vet said? What's been your situation when it comes to using these, generally very expensive diets from your vet that contain, hydrolyzed proteins and novel proteins. And alternatively, if you have already gone down that homemade elimination diet path, let me know in the comments how that went for you. I'd just love to hear people's stories, and even hearing your frustrations is a way that we can sort of work together to figure out something differently. So thank you for another week of Thursday's Thoughts, and I'll see you next week.